What's up YouTube, Saf here on Super Saf TV, and in this video I'm going to be comparing the specs of the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 to the Samsung Galaxy S4. Now the Note 3 has just been announced today. It's been heavily rumoured and highly anticipated, whereas the S4 has been one of the most popular Android smartphones of 2013. But how do these compare? What's different? Well, do hit that thumbs up button and let's find out in this head-to-head spec comparison. So we'll start off with the size and dimensions. The Note 3 is a larger device, roughly about 14.6mm in height, around about 9.4mm in width, but it's not a huge deal thicker, just 0.4mm thicker. So it is a larger device, and that for many might just be a decider. You do have a larger device. The S4 for many people is very large as it is, so the Note 3 may be a bit too large for some people out there. But with the larger dimensions, you do get larger screen, a 5.7-inch screen on the Note 3, whereas the S4 has a 5-inch screen. So you are going to have a lot more real estate on the Note 3, and it may just eliminate the need for having an extra tablet. So if you've got a smartphone and a tablet with the Note 3, that might just eliminate the need of having a tablet altogether because of that huge screen size. Now resolution wise, both of these have a 1080p screen, so 1920 by 1080. The S4, because it's smaller, it does have a higher PPI, 441 PPI, whereas the Note 3 looking at roughly about 386 PPI. So the S4, generally speaking, you're going to be getting slightly more sharper images and text, but at that level it is very difficult to see, and unless you're pixel hunting, you're probably not going to be able to notice a huge deal of difference. Yes, a difference is there, but not massive. The Note 3 is also slightly heavier. You're looking at roughly about 38 grams heavier than the S4, so overall a larger device, a little bit heavier, but you do have a larger screen. Now the S4 build, you've got that polycarbonate plastic with the hyperglaze finish, the white frost, a black mist, and you've also got a limited red version available right now. Now the Note 3 is quite interesting. You've got leather style material with some stitching. They really want to make it feel like a notebook, so that's quite unique and something different. It's going to be available in a classic white, a black jet, or a lush pink version. So those are going to be the initial versions available. The Note 3 also has switchable back covers, so you've got a whole range of different colors on there, different materials as well. You've got some metallic covers as well. Now we've looked at the outside of the devices, now looking at what's inside. The processors, the S4 has the two versions. You've got the quad core 1.9 GHz version. You've also got the octa-core version, which has the 4 at 1.6 GHz and the other 4 at 1.2 GHz. Now the Note 3 has a 2.3 GHz quad-core processor. That's the LTE version, and they've also got a 3G octa-core 1.9 GHz processor version as well. So you've got two different versions here. Now they have split this depending on market, so you know, you've got the LTE and the 3G versions, so that's quite interesting to see, but packing a better processor on both sides, no doubt. The Note 3 also has more RAM, 3GB of RAM versus 2GB of RAM. Now this is mainly for the multitasking abilities. The S4 is pretty good anyway, but the Note 3 has some other additional features which we'll be talking about a little bit later, and that 3GB of RAM is really going to help for that. Now in terms of the different storage options, the S4 comes in the 16, 32 and 64GB versions. The Note 3 will be coming in the 32 and 64GB versions. So that's nice to see that even the base version of the Note 3 will have 32GB onboard storage. Both of these do have expandable memory up to 64GB via a micro SD card slot. Now this is something that I really like about Samsung devices. Now moving on to the cameras, this is very interesting. Both of these have a 13 megapixel camera, so pretty standard here. The S4 camera is very nice. You can see lots of comparisons on my channel with other devices. So for images at least, these both will be quite similar. But coming on to video now, the S4 1080p at 30 frames a second, pretty decent video. The Note 3 has 1080p at 30 frames a second for the 3G version, but the 4G LTE version is also going to come with 60 frames a second at 1080p, and you may want to sit down for this one, but it's also going to film a 4K video. Now take a moment to let that sink in. 4K video on a phone, that is absolutely insane. 2160p video recording on a smartphone at 30 frames a second is just absolutely crazy. My DSLR does not film at that resolution. Now it is arguable whether you'll be needing that resolution on a smartphone, because most devices' screens are still just 1080p. 4K is still not mainstream, but definitely nice to have Ultra HD 4K resolution recording on a smartphone. I think Samsung included this in the Note 3 because they can. I'm not sure of the practicality and how many people will be actually using it, but why not? It's really nice to have. Front-facing cameras are similar here, 2 megapixels, 1080p, so expect similar results from both of these cameras. In terms of the operating system, Android Jelly Bean 4.2.2 on the S4 with the TouchWiz interface. The Note 3 is going to come with the latest version of Android Jelly Bean 4.3, again with Samsung's TouchWiz UI. Now 4.3 should be coming on the S4 hopefully soon, but it does come out of the box with the Note 3. Now touching on some of the additional features, the Note 3 does have an S Pen, something that a lot of devices do not have, and it's an improved S Pen, so you've got some additional features. They were going on about the dot, circle and square, and it's very interesting. What you can do is you can hover over dot and you've got lots of other options. You've got S search, for example, which is going to let you search through memos even with symbols that you draw out. So if it's your handwriting, it's also going to search through those memos, so you could possibly put a star on some notes and it's going to search those notes when you just draw out a star. Very, very impressive here. Now the circle, the way this works is you can circle documents or web pages, images and videos, and you can put them into a scrapbook as well. So very interesting here. And one of the most impressive features that I found is that when you're in Air Command, you can actually draw out a square and you can open a window in that square. So that's really, really impressive. You know, really taking advantage of the multitasking abilities of this smartphone, and that RAM is really gonna go towards it. You can also open the same app in multiple windows, which is absolutely great. So you could be chatting to 2 people within the same app. Now I'm not sure which apps are going to be fully supported with this, but that's great to see. The S4 does have Air View and Air Gestures, and it also has a multi-windows, but definitely not at the level of the Note 3. Now looking at the batteries, the S4 has a 2600 mAh battery. It is removable and it's pretty decent. It does get me through the day usually. Sometimes I do have to give it a charge if I've been using it a little bit heavily. The Note 3 comes with a 3200 mAh battery, so a much larger battery. Again, it is removable as well, and that's one thing that Note users usually boast about, that battery. Because it's a larger battery, you're going to be able to get more usage out of it, and it's going to get you through the day without any worries whatsoever. Now moving on to the price, the S4 right now in the UK you can get it for roughly about 400 to 450 pounds, or in the US you're looking at between 600 to 650 dollars, and that's for the base 16GB version. Now the Note 3, they've not confirmed prices as yet, but I would expect it to be roughly about the £600 mark here in the UK, or roughly about $700 in the US. Now that will put it in line with the price of the S4 when it was initially released, and because you've got those additional features, that's the sort of pricing I would expect. In terms of release, they've said in the US and Japan it's going to be roughly in October time, early October time, and in the UK and other markets it's going to be at the end of September. Now to summarize, the Note 3 does pack a bigger punch compared to the S4. You've got all those additional features: larger screen, a faster processor, more RAM, the S Pen features, the battery, 4K recording. The list is endless, but that does come at the expense of a much larger device as well as more expensive pricing. So I think it really comes down to what you prefer. I think the S4 will be good for most people, but the Note 3 is really going to appeal to all the geeks out there like me. What are your views on the Note 3? Are you impressed? What do you think of it? Do drop me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, as always, please do hit that thumbs up button for me. It really does help me out. And why not subscribe to the channel? I've got plenty more videos coming up on here. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf TV, and I'll see you next time. If you want to see more regular videos like this one, then be sure to hit the subscribe button, which will be below. If you're on a mobile device, it may be somewhere else. If you want to see my previous related video, then hit the link right here. If you want to stay in touch over Facebook, Twitter and Google+, then all of the addresses will be there somewhere, as well as direct links in the description below.